Hello, this is A Knitter's Nest. I'm your host, Lisa. This is a podcast about spinning, knitting, and other creative pursuits. I come to you from the Midwest of the States, just outside Chicago. And this is my 6th podcast, though it has been a year since my last one. So I wanted to thank everyone that have been watching in my absence and have reached out and made comments to me either on Ravelry or in the comments of my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. I intended to, jump on the bandwagon and do this podcasting on a regular basis, and then, of course, life gets in the way and full-time jobs and being a mother and a wife and just the responsibilities sort of got in my way. But I was thinking about all the podcasters out there that put regular episodes out. And it's really remarkable that you're able to do it every week or 2 weeks or even monthly. And I really appreciate all you podcasters out there who are filming and keeping me company when I knit and when I grade papers. I am a school teacher during the school year. I teach math, which you might think would make me a very technical knitter and spinner, but alas, I am not. Knitting and spinning is that one area of my life that I'm not technical at all. I'm taking a more intuitive approach. I've been a self-taught knitter and spinner for the most part. So today's episode is going to include on and off the needles, so the things that I have completed. I thought I would catch up with you on some of the pieces that I was working on the last time I podcast, just to follow up on how they turned out and whether I wore them and so forth, and comments about that. And then I want to talk about in progress knits and spins that I have as well. So without further ado, I think I'll just go ahead and jump right in. One thing I did get over my break is I placed an order with JuL Jewel, and they sell all sorts of closures for sweaters and shawls, and they sell leather bag handles for making bags, and they sell these beautiful leather notebooks. It was on sale, so I thought this would really get me going and being inspired. So you can see here you can replace the inside with a notebook. Yeah, and I'm really, really happy with this. So that's where I'm keeping my show notes. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with things that I have completed since the last time I podcasted. So the very, very first episode that I created, I was making this shawl. This is the Pur Shawl by Cabin 4. And it's made out of Cascade Echo Duo. It's the white. And this is Cascade Surrey Merino. And you can see that it's quite a bit worn. There's some pilling, not a lot. I am fairly rough with my clothing. I don't treat them very carefully all the time. But one thing it did do is it turned out quite large. And I wore this so much in the winter. I have an air-conditioned classroom at school, and so when I'm during my planning period and I'm grading papers, this is just lovely to wear. So, yeah, I was very happy with how that turned out. It's quite soft, and I really would love to knit with this yarn again, especially the Echo Duo is just so soft. What I did here is I put little knots at the end. I know some of the podcasters are putting tassels on the ends of their shawls, which I think looks really cool. So yes, this is actually the wrong side, which I think looks just as pretty as the right side. So it was a win. I like that you do extra increases on the side, so it creates a little bit of length as well as, so not going too deep. So that was one thing I had finished. And like I said, this was comfort knitting with all the events of the world. Sometimes you just need to zone out and work on something that's mindless and easy and comforting, and that's exactly what this project was for me. The other thing I was working on last time I spoke to you was a linen piece This is a cardigan that it's called the Quicksand Cardigan by Heidi Kermeyer, and it's made out of Quicksand Company Kestrel. And it really was my second completed garment, and I have to say I don't wear it that much. I'll stand up here and show you what it looks like a little bit. I'm not sure why I don't wear it very much. I know it's sort of a lavender color, so it doesn't go with everything. I don't know. Now that I'm wearing it, I think it looks pretty nice. I should wear it more often. But this was my second completed pattern. My other one was the Nanook cardigan by the same designer. So Heidi Kermeyer, it's beautiful patterns, especially for a newbie garment knitter like myself. Recent FO. My nephew and his wife just had a baby boy, and of course every time someone has a baby in the family I think, oh, I'm going to knit him this blanket, and I have all these grand schemes of knitting them all kinds of things, and of course I don't realize how long it's going to take me just to make a single blanket. But I was online and I was looking at Love Knitting, and I found this pattern. Like, who could not fall in love with that picture of that baby and that blanket? So I sort of had this, like, I have to knit that for the new baby, and so I did. I started this during spring break. My husband and I and my son went to Captiva, Florida, and I took this with me. I started with the blue. I bought the kit from Love Knitting. I did a crochet cast on, which is also the same as one way to do a provisional cast on. And I had learned from Sally Melville's book that when you do the crochet cast on, it'll match your standard bind off. And indeed, it did. It matched the bind off perfectly. So this was knit on 3.25 millimeter needles, and it's just it's not that big really, but I thought it was going to be a lot smaller. Of course, I should have just looked at the dimensions, right? So I have this, it's just a garter stitch blanket, and it really was, the only thing that kept it interesting was the stripes, and then the yarn is just absolutely beautiful. It's a superwash wool, which I don't really prefer to work with now, but it's, you know how a lot of superwash wools feel coated and they lose their sort of lively spring? This does not. This is just really very, very beautiful yarn, and you know, it's really super stretchy. And I actually have quite a bit left over. Excuse me. So it was such a slog, and I was knitting and knitting and knitting, and I just was bringing it everywhere, and I was knitting on it during final exams when I was giving my kids their test, and I couldn't wait to be done. I couldn't wait to be done, and then all of a sudden I was done. And a casting off, and I missed it. It was just such an easy, lovely knit. I have a couple of concerns about this blanket. First of all, it is a superwash wool, but it says do not tumble dry. Maximum 30-degree wool cycle, minimum machine action, and dry flat. Well, the young mom that I was planning on giving it to, which I still may, she doesn't hand wash anything. And as soon as my sister, who's the grandma, the new baby, she looks at the blanket and she says, well, Lisa, is that machine washable and dryable? And I said, well, you can machine wash it, but it's got to be cool, and you got to lay it flat to dry. And I have this feeling like I'm going to give him this beautiful blanket that I spent so long knitting out of this beautiful yarn that wasn't inexpensive, and they're just going to just toss it in a washing machine with all the other things and toss it in the dryer. And it's sort of that knit-worthy idea that people who knit and know about natural fibers know how to care for them. So I know I should just give it to them, and then if it gets ruined, it gets ruined, right? It's silly for me. I'm being selfish, right? I should just give them the blanket. So I haven't actually seen the new baby yet, and that's the other thing. I'm really not close with this couple. I don't see them but a couple times a year. You know, and I felt like as a knitter, well, I'm an auntie, I should do the blanket thing and make them something. And then I see on Facebook that somebody's crocheting them blankets and things of that nature. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just make a hat with the leftovers. Give them the hat and a gift card for diapers or something. I mean, I really think that they would appreciate a little baby hat as much as they would a blanket. I mean, if it was somebody that was really, really near and dear to me, I mean, just the reality is she's not. So I'm thinking maybe I should save this for another special baby. You know, just a mom that, you know, knows how to care and is willing to, you know, you can throw it in the washing machine, but you have to lay it flat to dry. And I just really think that's going to be too much for this young mom, and I don't want to stress her out. And I had actually made them a blanket for their other baby girl. And it was that kind of situation where you make the blanket and you send it off, and, you know, you never see it again. You don't know if they've used it. And it's kind of hard. You know, I'm not really sure what I should do. And the other thing I was a little worried about is I had used the magic knot method for doing some joins because I didn't feel like weaving in a lot of extra ends, though. It really wouldn't have mattered because there were so many ends anyway, and I don't really mind weaving in ends. But I used the magic knot for some of the joins, and then after I washed it, some of the knots came undone. Luckily, it was only like 3 times I used the magic knot. So I had to do some quick thinking and, you know, weaving in ends, and now I'm really worried that it gets washed and isn't treated well. It's going to fall apart and unravel. So anyway, I suppose I've talked long enough about this blanket, but I'll think about it. I mean, I'll probably give it to her. I mean, what am I going to do with it? My son's only 14. He's not going to have any babies anytime soon. So, you know, I'll probably just give it to him, and God bless. And, you know, I hope they enjoy it. But so that was my latest finished object. Speaking of blankets, another thing I was working on last time I spoke with you is I was working on my husband's blanket. Now it's 85 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and he's in no shape or form needing a blanket, but I started this blanket for him. This is, oh, it's huge. This is a blanket made out of Noro. And when I showed it to you last time, I think I only had a couple of rows. I'm on the 7th. I've got this last row to finish. I've got this row and then a whole nother row, so to make it 8 rows all together. And this is made out of Noro Silk Garden, and you can get an idea of the beautiful colors. It's really, really pretty. Of course, I do have all these. You don't want to look at the back, because the back's got all the ends. I told myself I'd be really good and I'd weave in the ends after every row, which I did for like 2 rows, and then I stopped. So, but his birthday is in July, and I'm really thinking of just finishing this up, even though he's not going to need it. But I think it'll just be pretty along our sofa. I'm knitting this on size 8 circular needles. I'm using Addy rockets. And basically it's a mitered square like everybody's making, except that it's quite a bit bigger gauge. There's 30 rows deep, so the squares are fairly large. But this has been a really nice knit, and I have to say, I know a lot of you either love it or hate it, Noro, but it really does soften up as you're working with it. I don't know what it is. It's almost like linen, you know, as you handle it and work with it, it gets softer and softer. And I mean, I don't even find it itchy next to my neck still, and he likes it. So it actually kept me warm this winter while I was working on it, because I just have it in my lap. And so that should be finished very soon. So that's really all the knitting content that I have today. I have a lot. I mean, of course, I have languishing pieces on the needles that I really should get to while I'm off, but you know how it is. It's always the new shiny thing that gets you going, and you wanna cast on the latest thing. So that's on and off the needles. Oh, I forgot, I'm working on one more thing. I discovered a new podcast. It's called Espace Trickle, and it's these two ladies, Melissa and Lisa, who they have a shop in Quebec. I think it's Montreal. And they have a lovely podcast. They have a wonderful business relationship and a personal friendship. And they are the worst enablers. I mean, I know part of the podcast is to sort of promote new products and things that they have in their stores. But they're so charming and so lovely and lots of fun to watch. And so Melissa was working on this Dashain, another piece out of Quicksand Company, Kestrel. It's called the Dashain top. She made hers out of I think the ash colorway. I think that's what they call for in this pattern. I'm making mine out of a color called Byzantian. I'm not really sure how to say it. So I completed the front, and I learned my lesson with the other Quicksand Kestrel pattern. I'm not doing extra repeats in the front. I know a lot of people are, but I'm rather short-waisted, and knowing that this is going to stretch quite a bit, I think I knit the second size, which calls for 5 repeats of this sort of shale pattern in the front. So this went like lightning. Of course, it's on I think I'm doing it on a 6mm US 10 needle. And then I got to the back. So the back is just a big stockinette rectangle, which, of course, I'm all tangled up here, trying to get myself together for the podcast, moving things hither and yon just to see if I could get a good location in my house to get some decent light. But there's that saying, people sacrifice the good because they want the perfect, and so I just go ahead and do it. But anyway, so this, of course, I'm in the middle of I'm right at the end of the row here. So just finish up here. So what do I want to say about this? So I'm knitting the back, and it's a stockinette rectangle for the back. But I noticed in a lot of the pictures, the top seems to ride up in the back, because the front's got that natural shaping from the shale pattern, sort of scoops down in the middle. So a lot of knitters have knit short rows. Once they get to the desired length, which I think is 15 inches, they do some short rows shaping to create a little bit of depth at the bottom of the back of the piece, which I'm going to try to do. I'm not very good at short rows, but I did the shadow wraps for the Quicksand, so I think it'll be fine. But yeah, this has just been kind of a, mindless, I can knit in the car while we're going to the grocery store kind of knit here. But I love the color. I think it'll suit me well. And I really want to finish this before it gets, before the warm weather is out. I have a new obsession with linen, all things linen, as I'm going to talk about in my acquisitions and discovery section of the podcast. Linen has just captured my heart this summer, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I should have that ready to show you next time. Okay, so onwards to spinning. So I've been spinning a lot with my spindles lately. I'm going to show you an older FO from last summer. This is a bulky 2-ply. It's 4 ounces of a bulky 2-ply. This was a plying pack by Spun Right Round. It's Falkland. I tried to get more of these. She doesn't have any more of these in her shop. But basically, it was a variegated. I want to make sure my sound is on. Yeah, it's on. So it was a variegated braid, and then it had another braid that was just variegated grays, just all grays. And I spun this on my I think it was my Bosworth spindle over this did it on the deck, watching my husband fish, and plied it together. And of course, I make this hand spun, and then I don't make anything with it. But I think I'm going to make a woolly worm head. hat with this. I actually bought a pattern that calls for bulky. So I think I think it'll be a lovely hat. This has been sitting next to my bed in the hand spun basket. But I really love spindle spun yarn. It's just different than a wheel spun. I can't quite figure it out what the difference is, but you can see I've gotten a lot of grayer since the last time I podcast. So what else? This I just finished yesterday. This was a braid of BFL from Lisa Souza. And I spun this, I bought it a couple of years ago, and you know, it was a little compacted when I first took it out of the bag. I have a lot of stash and I kind of worried that it's all going to get all smushed. But what I did is I learned from Rachel from Wool and Spinning, sort of pre-draft and pre-attenuate the fibers a little bit, which I normally don't do, but for this it really worked great. So I spun this on my Turkish spindles for the most part, and then I made a plying ball, and then I applied it on my little gem with my brand new Acreworks bobbin. Definitely a fan of these bobbins. This is the first one. I've got this one. I've got two other baby bobbins for the Major Craft little gem. Much quieter. The tension was much easier to control. And really impressed with the Acreworks bobbin. I was going to talk a little bit about that later if I have time. So yeah, so what I did is I had a bunch of these little turtles that I had created from all of my Turkish spindles. And then I just basically divided them into half and then created a ball of two balls of fiber. And then what I did is I used the spindle that the fiber was on to join the cop that I'd taken off the previous one. And so I did the join, and then I wound it up into the ball, and then I did it again and again, and I got approximately two equal size balls to to apply together. And then I took the two and I wound them around a little styrofoam ball just to get a start. Sometimes the Peruvians used to take a rock, you know, and they would wind the two strands together. And so I had this huge, all the fiber together in two strands together, but not plied. And then I plied last night on my little gem while we watched television. And I watched, what I did is I took my ply bag samples and I sort of kept watch at my number of twists, just so it would be approximately the same. I'm not a very consistent spinner. I've only been spinning for a few years, and like I said, I'm not real. I suppose if I started knitting with my hand spun, maybe I'd want a little bit more consistent yarn. I'm not sure. I think sometimes it just once it all it's all knit up, it looks fine, and you know, I'm not looking for perfection or anything. So yeah, I was really pleased with this. I really like the spindle spun yarn. It's I think because as you're spinning the singles, you know, you're in touch with every single inch of your yarn. You know, it's a slower way of making yarn. And I just find it very my son just woke up, I think, upstairs. So yeah, more spindle spins are in my future here. Speaking of spindles, next thing I wanted to talk about was what I'm currently spinning. So I'm currently spinning, well, I'm spinning a few things, but I'll just show you the one thing that I really am sort of obsessed with right now, and that is this fleece that I purchased. So I bought a fleece off the Facebook fleece group from Sarah Leatherman. She's from Michigan, and she raises registered Romney sheep. And I have a lot of fleeces. If you've watched my other episodes, I'm always talking about fleece. I'm amassing pillowcases full of fleece in my laundry room, but that's another story. So this is the wash lock. Okay, in a little, I did do a combing demonstration on how I'm processing this particular fleece with my Valkyrie combs. I'm going to insert after I finish here. So it's a beautiful. It's about a 6-inch staple. Was her first shearing, and so you can see these lamb tips. So what I'm doing is I'm just cutting these off. They're not too bad, but I don't want my yarn to be brown. I want it to be gray. So I just trimming these off, and then I'm combing, and you'll see how I do that in the video. Here's a sample that I spun on my spindles. I did do it, I would say semi-worsted. It was from a comb top, but I don't smooth the fibers down as I draft out, so I get a little bit more of a lofty type fiber. So this is my sample. It matches my hair. I noticed as soon as I started going gray, I was starting to be fascinated with gray fleece. So I wonder if there's a reason. There's a reason why. Just the natural colors, just so beautiful. So yeah, I spun this on a couple of my top whirl spindles. They're here. So this is a spindle from Enid Ashcroft. Actually, that looks pretty good. This is made out of yew wood. It's just beautiful. So yeah. So when I spin, a true worsted is when you smooth it down as after you draft out short forward. So you pull out and smooth, pull out and smooth. Okay. So what I tend to do is when I spin, I'll pull out, but I don't always take out all the air. I just kind of move my hand. The thing about long wool, you're always going to get, that's what a Romney is, on a long wool, you're going to always get a little bit of a halo, even with a worsted. See, I kind of smoothed that out, but you can still see the fuzzy nature of the fiber. Oh. So yeah, this is the comb top that I did with my combs. I love how this is coming out on my spindle, and I just don't know if I'm going to be able to create the same yarn if I do it on my wheel. I don't know if I need to mimic what I'm doing on my spindle with what I'm doing on my wheel. Maybe I need to count the number of twists that I'm getting or something like that. But what's lovely about spindle spinning is, is that you can do it while you're watching TV. You can do it while you're outside having a beer with your husband. You can, it's so portable, and which is really the nice thing. So some say, well, spindle spinning is much slower than wheel spinning, but if you do more of it, you're going to actually be more productive than, because if you have to, it's like hand sewing, if you have to be at your machine. So what I'm doing is I'm creating 2 plies, one on this, which is, again, it's made out of yew wood. It's it's like a pagoda type spindle. And then the other spindle I'm using is this one. This one is an American maker. Hi, Ian.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Yeah. So just never mind me.
What are you doing? You doing a podcast?
Yeah, I'm filming, but I'll edit you out. I had a hard time.
Get up and make breakfast and stuff.
Go ahead and make breakfast, because I've got my microphone on, so I'm not really picking up a lot of the extra sounds in the house. Okay. I'm only getting so you just go ahead and do your thing, okay?
Right.
So yeah, this is Purple Heart, this wood, and this is from Texas Jeans, which is a maker here in the U.S. This spindle's got a bit of a wobble. I mean, I don't know. Once you get fiber on the spindles, sometimes you do get a little bit of a wobble. But they're both very fast spinning. So yeah. So then you just If you're interested in spindle spinning, Abby Frankenmuth has a really good YouTube video on how to park and draft, and then how to move away from parking and drafting into. So I'm trying not to put a lot of twist in my single because it is a long wool, and I'm trying to keep with that idea that the number of crimps per inch you have in the lock should be about the number of crimps you have in your finished yarn. So this is my little sample. I recently discovered a podcast called Tiny Fiber Studio, which is so well done, so professional. And she was doing a sample along, and so I sort of said, well, this is my sample along for my worsted. I didn't wash this, so it's got a little bit of a twist still in it. This is not finished. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash this, and I'm going to knit it up into, I think, a lace. Well, I'm going to experiment, like she suggested, do a stockinette, do some ribbing, do a cable, do a lace, and see how a 2-ply worsted acts. And then later on, every month, her plan was to do a different type of yarn. But she hasn't podcasted in a while, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with her podcast. But anyway, I thought that was in the spirit of her spin along. That's what I'm doing here. I just love the color. It's so pretty. Okay, I thought I'd give you a quick demonstration of how I create a comb nest for fiber for spinning. This is a completed nest from my Romney. I guess she would be considered a hoggitch. It was her first shearing. It's a Romney lamb, and yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous gray color. Okay, so for this demonstration, I'm using my Valkyrie combs. These are Valkyrie Extra Fine. They come in pairs like so. They're quite sharp. If you've ever seen combs or have experience with combs, you can injure yourself if you're not careful. This is the mount, which I just have clamped to my table, which keeps your stationary comb like so in an upright position. So the first thing you need to do is load your combs. So I'm going to take my locks, which I have over here. So these are some of my locks. Now when I wash this fleece, I did not wash them lock by lock or sort the locks at all. I just gently washed it in some mesh. And I find that it's the easiest way for me to wash the fleece. I can still identify the lock. So what I'll do is I can identify this was a lamb's fleece. You have sort of these tippy tips here. And now this is pretty typical of a Romney. They have pointed locks here. So this is a lamb's fleece. So these are the lamb tips. Now these are not at all brittle, but they are not the color that I want in my finished yarn. And since the lock is so long, I'm going to do a la Judith McKenzie, and I'm going to trim off these locks, the tips, which is something I never even thought of doing until I watched her video. So now I still keep track that this is the butt end and this is the tip end. And you want to load your comb so that the butt end is on your comb. You want to go, just want to bite a little bit from the butt end. You don't want to put it like right in the middle. You want to do it right on the end. So here are some more that I had prepared before. I am trying to cut them all the same length. I think it'll make a more consistent yarn. So let's put that there. Do a couple more here. I'm not going to load it up as much as I normally do for this demonstration. But again, I'm just pulling the locks from the washed fleece, pulling off those tips, and loading my comb. It's very easy to identify the lock. You just grab the tip. It's a beautiful, beautiful fleece. They say Romney is a coarse wool, but this fleece is just absolutely stunning. The fleece is the sheep's name was Loretta. Loretta, just like in Moonstruck. Loretta. You always feel so much better when you know the the used name. So do a couple more here. And what I'm getting from this by pulling off these tips is I'm getting a very nice gray color with no brown at all. A lot of times the gray fleeces can be a little brown from sunburnt tips and so forth. And because this is such a nice long staple, you're not losing anything by just trimming off those tips. Okay, so I've got enough on here just to get started. Let me move these aside. You do want to be careful. I'm not wearing shoes right now, which is really probably not very smart. You probably want to wear shoes when you're combing, and you don't want to bend down and pick something up while these are on your table, because yeah, you could really get hurt. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my other comb, and I'm going to hold it perpendicular to the stationary comb. And I'm going to start taking tiny little bites from the tips of the fiber. I sometimes use my hand to sort of push it down so I don't get any, so they don't double back. Now, one thing that you can do is spray with a little water, or combing milk they call it. This is water with a little unicorn fiber rinse in there. I picked up that tip, I think, from Beth Smith from her fiber prep book. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. If you are into fleece, you know what the book is. I think it's Spinner's Book of Fleece. That's what it is. So I'm keeping the comb, and I can also go away from my body. And sometimes you want to pull up the locks a little bit. So what'll happen is all the debris, any veg matter that you have, will get stuck in the combs, and then you can just dispose of it. So I'm putting my waste over here in a pile. This fleece is so gorgeous that I think I'm going to card up the waste in my drum carder and spin this wool in. I think that'll be really interesting. Okay, so now I have all the locks. You can see how much puffed up. I have all my locks on this comb. Now I need to get them back to this comb. So what I do is, again, I hold my comb perpendicular to the stationary comb, and now I go in an up and down motion and transfer the fibers back to the other comb. And again, sometimes if you get a little bit of static, you can just spray a little bit of your combing waste, or excuse me, combing milk or water, just to keep that static down. Again, pulling this up like so. I learned how to comb from a interweave press video. I think it was Robin Russo's combing video. It's excellent. Okay, so this fleece, I'm satisfied with just 2 passes. So I'm going to now diz. Now, just a word on the number of passes. You want to make sure that you do an even number of passes. This is because you want to keep track of the butt end and the tip end. So because I did 2 passes, I know that this is my tip end, and I want to spin from the tip. Some people like to spin from the butt end, the part closest to the fleece. It's just personal preference. You'll hear various theories on that. Okay, so now I'm ready to diz. So to diz, I'm going to use, this is a wooden diz. It looks like a concave button with a hole. And I use a crochet hook. You can get dizzes in a number of different materials: bone, metal, wood. This is a coconut button from Joann's that I've used with the holes, as long as it's concave. And what you're going to do is you're going to pull the tip like a beard. You're going to make a tip with the end, tip end here. You're going to take your diz, hold it so the concave is away from you, and now I'm going to pull some fiber into that little hole. And now I'm ready to diz. This is optional. You can just pull off the fiber off the combs without a diz. This just gives you a more consistent size. And again, this fleece, I only did 2 passes, but if it was a fleece with a lot of debris or a lot of shortcuts, you'd probably do 4 or 6 passes, possibly. And again, you can move across the combs. And you're pulling about a staple length just so it's starting to thin out a little bit, and then I continue to do this. There's our air conditioner. Okay, so here's the butt end. So I'm going to wrap it around my hand gently and make a nest of fiber. This was my tip end. This is what I'm going to spin from. I kind of twist it a little bit and stick it inside the nest. And voila, there's your nest of fiber ready for your spinning wheel or your spindle. And again, this is what they call waste, shorter fibers, but this is so lovely. I think I'm going to card that up, and I'll do a nice comparison between a worsted spin from the combed top and a woolen spin from the waist. It'll be an interesting experiment to see what they look like. Okay, I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you later. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was my latest obsession, and that's linen. I'm knitting with linen. I'm wearing linen. It's the warm months here in the Midwest, and so I've done quite a bit of amending my wardrobe to include more linen pieces. And I just got yesterday a couple of linen aprons, which I wanted to share with you. I was on Etsy looking for linen aprons, and I found this. There's a lot of makers that live in Europe, in Lithuania. This one's from Belarus. And I thought, well, do I really want to order something all the way from there? How long would it take me to get? So forth. Well, I bought 2 aprons from a shop called Linen from BY. And her name is Irina, and she does all the sewing. She has clothing, housing, linens for your bed, your kitchen, and so forth. And I bought 2 of these Japanese style aprons. Now I have a sewing machine, and I suppose I could learn how to make these for myself, but I bought a gray one, slate, like so. And I'll insert a picture here of me wearing the apron. It's got nice deep pockets. And I bought 2, one for outside when I'm out in the garden. Like just today when I was out watering, I put the apron on and I didn't have to worry about the hose, getting my clothes dirty. And I've got this one, which is a gray, or like a natural color. And this one, which is a dark steely gray. Gray is also my favorite color these days. It was a really speedy ship from Belarus. It came, I ordered it on the 7th of June, and it came just yesterday on the 20th. And it was really sweet. She gave me handwritten note in the package. I also wasn't sure what size to get, because I'm usually a large person. So I emailed her and I said, I don't know what size. I gave her my measurements, and she says, medium's your size. I said, are you sure? I want to make sure I have some ease. And she goes, medium is your size. Do not worry. Well, she was spot on, because they fit me beautifully, and I couldn't be more pleased with the purchase. So if you're looking to get a linen apron or a linen for your house, I would highly recommend her shop. I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. And if you're a new viewer just checking me out, thank you so much for giving me a shot. If you like what you see, if you could just give me a thumbs up or a subscribe to my channel, I would really appreciate it. All right, so I'll see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful week. Happy knitting, happy spinning, and thank you for the company. See you soon. Bye-bye.